especially our alumni, a lot of these questions, of course, will be targeted specifically at alumni. I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you to brag a little bit. So, and then we have more pointed questions after that. So, we're also going to go in a row. We're going to start with Lucia.
I am doing pretty well in my grades. I have had straight A's this first semester, and I'm really happy about that.
Right at the beginning of this year, Lucia sent both Susan and I her report card, and that was really touching for us to get to see how Lucia was doing. And that was something, I do appreciate that she sent us that, and it lets us know how she's doing. So, yeah, straight A's. It's amazing. So. Thank you, Lucia, for sending this.
And she skipped a year of math when she was here. She moved herself up 1 year, and I know you're doing really well in math this year. So it's a huge jump. I know she's grown as a student, but it's just great to see her doing so well and being confident.
I'm getting pretty much A's. I got like 1 B, and I guess I'm trying to focus towards math, and so I'm in Algebra 2 honors, and me and one other boy are the only boys in English honors.
I have to say one of my things that was definitely hard for me at first was I did Spanish 2, and she did teach us all the conjugation, but it's definitely a step up. So now I'm even, like just today I started Spanish 3, so...
as a freshman,
yeah.
Spanish 3.
So it's kind of funny because there's like 4 of us in there that are freshmen. So they're like, all right, because that's like half the class. Right now, I'm doing ecology club, and that's pretty interesting. We do the recycling around the school. I did football there, which is a big step up from flag football here. But I ended up playing in every game, so I think I'll do even better this year.
I really like the opportunities they have at Asheville High for like computer courses. First semester I took a class called Help Desk. We got to fix a bunch of computers that students bring in, and the teacher there talks about how you get to diagnose the problem and then go about fixing it. And I really like doing that. And then this semester I'm starting out in computer engineering 2, where we actually get to go about building our own computer, which is pretty cool. And academically, I got all A's last semester.
I'm generally arts focused, so I do like a lot of theater stuff, and I was in choir last semester. That was fun. And I'm at the dance team, and so I'm generally, and then there's Quixotica coming up, which is like a play at our school, mixture of plays, so I'm going to be doing that. I'm getting generally A's. I got A's last semester, and the only class I typically struggle, well, Susan helped me, but math, if it wasn't for Susan, I don't know where I would be. So, but yeah, I have 100 in that class, so I'm pretty psyched about that.
I used to play basketball and football for my first 2 years, and had probably A's and B's mostly, for my first 2.5 years. And I don't know, I'm enjoying it. I love playing sports. The football program there is great, and all the coaches are really supportive. And there's a graphics design thing too, a lot of classes around that, and the teacher's great, and I'm having a lot of fun with that too, so I'm enjoying it.
He is our assistant coach for the hospitality for basketball here, and he is amazing with the kids, and they really enjoy him, and I think they like basketball because of him and not me. And I'm okay with that.
It's actually wonderful how many alumni come back and volunteer at Rainbow. Adri comes back and is the best office assistant. That's the volunteer work that she helps out with. And
Duncan's working with 4th grade. Came in and talked to 4th grade about trees, and Susie being a new teacher and not knowing Duncan was just over the roof with his knowledge. She came in, she's like, do you know that he knows? And I'm like, yeah, I know. But it was really great to have a new teacher at our school, get to meet our alumni, and see that talent that he has and that gift he has.
And Shannon is already in college at Warren Wilson.
I
can't
am.
believe how fast it's going.
I know. I was here from kindergarten to 8th grade, and then I, like everyone else here, went on to SILSA. And there Adrian and I were actually in a play together.
Oh, yeah.
We were back to the 80s.
Yeah. Oh.
So I was, when I was at Asheville High, I was doing a lot of theater. I was thespian president when I was there. And I did a lot with writing. I went to a national competition this past summer for slam poetry in San Francisco called Brave New Voices. So I did a lot with theater and writing. And now that I'm at Warren Wilson, I chose Wilson really because it's a lot like Rainbow Mountain. I was just trying to get back. And right now I'm part of a task force that is trying to maintain sustainable banking and responsible banking on our campus. I'm trying to steer a lot of my energy for the arts into activism. And I'm doing a lot of theater involvements that are involved more in that activist kind of pathway. And all through high school, I was an AB student, and I think a lot of that was because I was doing so many extracurriculars, and math was a big thing for me. So I was tutored by Susan, and Susan was tutoring my brother the other day, and I think you told him that I was just like writing numbers at one point. I didn't know, but Susan really helped me, and I feel a lot better where I'm at with that. But I've never felt like I had any disadvantage to students who went to a public school or somewhere else than from coming here.
And Shannon moved up a grade.
Yeah,
So
I
when I
skipped
started
6th grade.
my first year, she came into Omega as a 6th grader, as a 7th grader, and we said, well, we'll put her in 7th grade, and the next year we'll tell her she has to do 7th grade over again, because certainly she won't have enough growth. And she came in the first day of school, and I was like, oh, she's going to graduate at the end of this year. And so she was finished, and she had so much growth in the 2 years that she was more than ready for high school by the time she graduated. So you graduated high school at 16?
I did, yeah, and I'm 17, and I'm still 17. And I wouldn't have been able to skip a grade if I hadn't been at Rainbow, because it wasn't my academics, it was that I needed to be with people that were kind of my maturity level, and that was where I found a lot of similarities with people. So I'm really blessed that I went to Rainbow because of that.
I know it's a big list of awards, but some of the biggest awards that you got when you graduated?
I got the Principal's Award. I was really close with my principal, Mr. Townsend, who's the guys' principal. I got discrete math honors, which was like another wow moment. I got my AP Art History Award, which is I'm studying art history in college now because of that. I got a lot of history and English awards as well, and then a lot of that, yeah.
And a lot of theater stuff as well. And,
yeah, a lot of theater.
It's called the Principal's Award.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's the award at SILSA, so that's a huge honor. Right.
I think one thing is why a lot of us say we struggle with math is that's a very intense testing environment. It's not something that's really discussion based, which is what I really took away from Rainbow and what I've found is more real world. But I know as a student throughout my high school career, and I still struggle with this, is when I was at Rainbow, there wasn't as much testing, and I think that that's definitely changed in a wonderful way where it's not the main focus, but it is preparing students more for that kind of intense testing environment that is, Asheville High or any other high school that a student would go to. That's been helpful.
And those of you who are in advanced levels of math, which is, what level are you in, Samuel? Even at Carolina Day, you ended up
advanced.
Algebra 2
Yeah,
honors.
you're in Algebra 2 as a freshman. You all had to take the end of course, so they all have to take the regular state end of course tests to get those high school credit from here before they go on high school. They can't just go to Carolina Day or SILSA and say, I'm ready for Algebra 2. they have to show not only that they passed Algebra 1, but they have to actually score higher than high school students, don't they?
Yes, they're
To
supposed
get
to
credit?
score an 85, but the percentage is kind of awkward in those testings, so they have to score a certain level. Claudia, do you want to interject?
Well, maybe I can address it a little bit in the sense that I talked to the teachers, Lucy's teachers, after her first report card, just in a kind of informal, conference setting, and some of them said, "Wow, she seems to be doing this so easily. Do you think she needs an extra challenge?" And some of them said, and all of them were, very happy with her, having her in class. One of the teachers said, "Oh, I wish I could clone her." But the math teacher said, "I love that she asked so many questions," and that was, he meant that. She meant that. She was very. She really liked how well Lucy participated and how when she didn't get it, she asked a lot of questions. So that is definitely something that she learned here. And it helps her now still. And I think that the main thing is that she's never been intimidated, even if she wasn't immediately, something wasn't immediately her best subject. She's never shut down and thought, "Oh, I cannot do this, whatever." And this has served her really well so far in a very different environment.
It's very different.
And with that said, also, like, Lucia started out in Math 2, which would be the equivalent of, like, geometry now. The state curriculum's changing. Samuel did 2 years of math here, Algebra 1 and geometry here, right? Robbie did Algebra 1 and geometry here. Duncan did Algebra 1 and geometry here, right? I'm not missing one, right? Did Adriana finished algebra here. The high school level classes, Ian did algebra here. Shannon finished algebra here and went to geometry in high school. And so they're all taking all of our algebra is kind of becoming the normal for 8th grade, but a lot of our kids, I don't believe in holding them back when they hit algebra. So right now we have six 8th graders taking algebra 2 this year. And it's a high level, and they feel probably more pressure than, slowly. I've been here, this is my 7th year at Rainbow, and it's getting more difficult, as Shannon had said all the time. And they just took a test covering 6 chapters in ACE. Was it a fun, easy test to take? I think that's shifting, but these kids who are in these honors classes, Duncan was always in advanced math, and he'd always say he was bad at it. I'm like, Duncan, you're doing 10th grade math. But, they're so hard on themselves. They're like, but I want to get, and the other shift is, to me, is when they get into algebra and algebra 2, if they don't get 100 on the test, they're like, oh, I don't get it. But it's not that assessment test necessarily. It's also the effort, the understanding, and so I'm like, as long as I'm seeing 70s on the test, you're understanding the concepts. Now it's just learning how to answer those tests that, that's a test that I can test and test for your understanding better than something on paper can. And if I'm noticing what you're doing and you're getting so far, now the goal is to understand what mistakes you're making. And that's what my biggest goal is for them. I always want them to understand. I'd rather see a student make more mistakes at the beginning because they learn more than if they always get it right, then they don't realize there's something still to be learned. And so all these kids are in advanced math, and that's that level. So,
Lucia, would you say that you're a student that things always came really easy for, or you, when you compare yourself with the other classmates, or are you someone that you feel like you have to have a lot of flashcards and really work hard at it?
Well, it's funny because there's this girl in my class, and she came up to me a few weeks ago and said, wow, you really get good grades because we just got our grades back, and she's like, how do you do it? I'm like, well, I work really, really hard, Like, I work really hard. I stay up really late. I study a lot. I ask a lot of questions. I make sure that with every teacher I find out exactly what they're looking for, so that I know how to get that grade in their class, and then I just study a lot. And
are you aware that a lot of 9th graders don't come in with that skill of being able to ask questions and having their work habits down? And
some people, just
you see the comparison.
Yeah.
Does anybody else notice a difference between themselves and their peers in those types of ways? And did you feel that Rainbow Mountain was part of that aspect in preparing you to have good work habits and manage your time and ask adults questions?
Yeah. I'm at a college that is completely discussion based, and if you aren't participating, in that environment and aren't willing to ask questions or admit that you don't know and you want to know something, that becomes detrimental to the whole group dynamic. And I think, and like Lucia said, it's all about, I think, a lot of people going into those high school setting kind of have the formula of that system figured out. And since this is such a departure from that and a real world way of learning, I think you understand the real world way of doing things is you have to work hard for them, and there's no shortcuts you can take to really understanding anything.
Roger, if you think
Yeah, I'd like to add something about the testing. When Rob first got in to CILSA, he was a little bit overwhelmed, and then he kind of settled down after that and spent a whole significant amount of time. In fact, from a parenting point of view, when football was going on and he was just learning to manage the workload, we had a lot of peace for that period. He was busy all the time and would sleep through the weekends mostly. But then he started developing test-taking strategies, like for multiple choice, where you eliminate the things you know aren't there and those types of things. And then I think he got good at the skill of taking tests, which helped him make the adjustment, and then the time that was required for the studying dropped down quite a bit, at least from the parents' point of view. So I believe it was the adaptability that helped him make that transition and get into a different type of educational environment. It happened too in football. We didn't really push him into it at all, and we sort of let him find his own direction over there, but he chose in the summer just to start attending the kind of voluntary football practices they had over there. And demographically, it was a group that he'd never been with before or seen anything like that in all of his schooling history, certainly. So he was thrust into a completely new environment, and he made his way and he fit in just naturally. And I attribute that to the flexibility and openness and some of the other good qualities that are taught over here in Rainbow. So it's that openness to explore, and then the adaptability when you're in unusual situations that we've seen carry him through in the program.
I noticed that I used to teach at public high school in East Tennessee, and I noticed that that everybody's different. Of course, people have different interests and aptitudes, but I feel like based on the holistic approach we have here at Rainbow, that students who graduate from Rainbow really seem to know themselves well, know their learning styles well, know their personalities well, but also are able to work within a community and really respect the other people in the community and kind of be able to harmonize and work together beautifully, which is not really often the case with high school students and older. So that's something I really enjoy seeing in all of you all.
I definitely think that Rainbow helped me adjust to my environment very, very fast. So definitely at the beginning, you're like, oh my gosh, it's so different, so many people, the classes, this change of the structure, the change of like the classes and times, just so different. Like you're so used to being in one classroom with one or two teachers with the same people. And Rainbow definitely helped me, after a few weeks, you're just like, okay, I can do this. I know this teacher wants, like Lucia was saying, this teacher wants me to write, me to create my own study guides, and she wants to, some teachers actually like to look at your study, your study guides that you use, your notes. So definitely being self-driven helps so much, and Rainbow definitely helped me be very self-driven, so.
This is not only my first year in Rainbow, but my first year in a private school. So it was definitely a big transition from public to private, not only socially, but also with the teachers. I feel that in public school, children do not have as much the opportunity to build a relationship with their teachers and to get like the one-on-one that sometimes I know that I personally needed, and I know that a lot of other children need too. So and I mean, I feel that I have a great and wonderful relationship with Susan and Jason, and I mean, and I feel that I am building in my curriculum, because when I was in public school, I understood no math. I was like really lagging. It's because I think that the teachers don't take the time to just get to know you and build a relationship with you, and I think that helps a lot. And I feel that here, that you really get to know them and I mean, I feel like even with my classmates that we're just like kind of like a big family, and yeah, in public school it's really divided, and I mean, there's a lot of bullying, and yeah, so I mean, and here it's just like everybody's cool with each other, and yeah, so I'm really glad that I could have this opportunity to be with Susan and Jason and everybody.
What have you discovered about yourself as a learner that here, as a result of coming here, that you might not have discovered otherwise?
Well, I think that because I've been in public school my whole life, so I never had the opportunity to have the one-on-one, and so I didn't really know that I needed the one-on-one and like the connection with the teachers. And so when I came here, I was like, oh, they actually like take the time to like show you examples and to make you understand it. And so I found out that I needed sometimes the one-on-one and the extra help a lot sometimes. And that, I mean, I don't think any child going through school should have to feel like lost or like they're kind of behind. And I feel that like Rainbow has really helped me feel that, I mean, I'm like I fit in and like I belong here, and yeah, that I have a great relationship and I'm doing a lot better in mine.
By the way, Marley's, like everybody here, is a really, really smart girl. And I'm actually going to jump in and add something. We have a teacher that's new to Rainbow this year that's been in public school for many years, and is a fabulous teacher. And she keeps saying to me, Renee, what's going on here at Rainbow, what people need to understand is in public school, yeah, they're presenting all this material, and in the lower grades, because we take academics at a different pace in the lower grades, at the lower grades, maybe they're presenting a different level of material, those lower grades, but the kids are not learning it. They're not absorbing it. And here, they're accessing the academics, and they're really understanding it as they move along. If they don't understand it, we move back and we make sure that they really understand it before they get up into the upper grades. And that makes a huge difference as you move on to the older grades.
You got a lot of them people now. I find like a lot of my new friends that I made at the school, they'll study really hard for a test, but it'll just be memorization. Mm-hmm. So I'll be like, so what does this mean exactly, because I want to understand. They'll be like, oh, I don't know, I just memorized it. And, they just memorize it for the test, and then they forget about it, and then they just, that's it. That's their way of doing it. So I feel like here, you really learn the full meaning of something, but whereas there, it's a little less of a chance maybe that you understand the full thing. Mm-hmm.
There's probably like 4 main components. Like there's the academics, there's your friends, there's your teachers, and then if you do athletics, there's that. And so really, when I first went into SILSA, I thought it was easier than here. I thought I was really prepared, and I thought it was easier at first. And it was pretty nice because I know Susan pushed me really hard when I was here, and she made sure I understood everything, and it made it really easy when I got there to transition and make the change with more people there and just learning stuff and getting it all down. And then with friends, I really didn't know anybody because there was one other guy who went to Asheville High with too, and he was in Asheville High, not SILSA. So there was really nobody around when I first got there. But interestingly enough, all my best friends ended up being people who went to Francine Delaney. And we recognized each other because we used to play each other in football and basketball and everything. And there was always some. We all remembered it and remembered the faces, and it really helped me create some bonds with people. And it wasn't that hard to transition. And then with teachers, I was really close with Susan and William. And when I transitioned, it was a little different. I mean, there's teachers that are like Susan and William who really want to be engaged, like my science teacher and some other people. And then there's people who are just there. And so, I mean, it's tough at first to get used to the people who don't care as much and are just trying to put the work there, and you got to really make the effort for yourself. But I was able to create bonds with teachers there because of the bonds I had created here, and I wanted those again. So it helped me a lot with the teachers there, to try and engage and ask questions. I'm pretty good friends with a lot of my teachers, and I can ask them for a lot of anything, and they'll help me out. And the last thing was athletics, and I know when I went there, I wasn't ready for tackle football. I played when I was little, and I hated it. I wasn't big, hard hitting guy when I was little, and I just didn't like it. And it was hard at first when I was playing football and basketball too. It was a really hard transition. But now, as I'm junior now, this was my last year. It was my third year of football, and I'm really into it now, and I'm working really hard to be one of the better people next year. And I see the people who are coming up, like Ben, for one. He's doing great in basketball. He came in his first year, and he wasn't really playing much, but he worked hard, and I think a lot of that came from here, and especially for me, leadership now, because I'm the senior now on the football team. There's a lot of leadership roles, and definitely when I was here, I know I was the leader of most of the teams, and I feel like that's really kicking in now. It kicked into my sophomore year when I was the oldest on the JV team, and now it's kicking in again as my senior year, and I see that applying.
So even though we have these little tiny teams,
if
I'm hearing you right, the opportunity for the leadership here transition to you being prepared to be a leader.
Definitely, and I can see it in Robbie too. He's doing great. I don't even know where it came from. I love Robbie. He's a good athlete too, but I didn't think he was going to come in and do as good as he was. Because now I asked around, I was like, "Hey, you guys know Robbie?" And everybody's like, "Oh yeah, Robbie, the really hard hitting guy who's smacking everybody." I'm like, "Whoa, is there another Robbie?" I'm like, "Robbie's the big hitter as a freshman," and I'm freaking out. So clearly he made a good transition. But yeah, it's just he's doing great. Yeah, so I'm impressed. Yeah, it was good. It prepared me well.
And Adria, you've been waiting to say something.
I just to add on to Marley's discussion. I think that definitely, not to like diss Asheville High, because Asheville High is great, but in like Silsa, I feel like is a much smoother transition in terms of like the size, because I think this year it's like, what, 250?
260.
They cap it at around 200
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, and so it's definitely, compared to 1,000 or so in Asheville High, it's definitely, you have smaller classes, and the teachers for the most part are great, and especially Rainbow helped me be really close to my teachers, so definitely, note to self, definitely be close with your teachers, because they're really helpful, and they can write you all sorts of things, like for college, notes of recommendation, stuff like that. So it's really great. They're awesome.
I just want to say that Susan and Jason are incredible teachers, and this year they've really stepped up on note taking. And how when you're sick, use a peer. Get your notes from a peer, and it's always great. You know, Jody mentioned color coordination, and they really help us understand, especially notes.
I think one of the biggest things that helps us to make sure that we're making sure the students are prepared is keeping the relationships. I mean, I go to Shannon's house for dinner every once in a while, and I keep connected with all the kids I've taught. So there's even one student that graduated the year before Shannon that I still keep in touch with. And every year when you graduate, at the end of every one of our units, we ask the students to give us feedback. And they have to tell us, they rank us 1 to 10, what they learned, if it was fun, and feedback on what we need to do to improve the lesson. And we keep those inside of our binders so that we can look back at it. And we always say in our class, we always talk about old students, and we'll say, they told us we need to do this more. They told us we need to do this, or they didn't wish that we had taught them this when they got to high school. So we're constantly changing what we're doing to make sure that we're meeting those needs. So if I missed something one year, we're adding it on the next year. And to the feedback the students give us, you'd be surprised how many times they'll put like it was a 1 for fun, but a 10 for what they learned. And they start to learn that you can't always do things that are always fun because you're going to learn something from it. And the feedback we get back always makes our lessons better. As we come back to a unit, we'll look at it and go, oh yeah, remember they said this happened, and so that's really helpful. But
one of the things that we're concentrating on is not only the content. We know we have to give them the content, but because we're able to develop relationships with each of the students, we're really working on them learning how to be students so that they can be successful. And what Jody was talking about earlier is a great example of it. We've seen her through this process coming up, and from last year, her growth to this year, watching her develop those skills that she needs to take with her as she goes, learning how to learn, learning what she needs to do in order to be successful. That's as much as what was concentrating on as the content. We know we have to give them the content, but that's just as important. And so each one of them, getting to know each one and what they need to do in order to go beyond, that's what we're concentrating on. That's what we're able to do in our program.
So over these last few months since Samuel's been at Carolina Day, I've gotten quite a bit of feedback from his teachers. And one of the things that I love about Carolina Day is that we, as parents, we're able to have kind of the intimate personal relationship with the teachers. If we want to, it's there available to us, similar to like being at Rainbow. And some of the feedback that I've gotten from Samuel's teachers are things like, Samuel fits in beautifully. He always offers, and even guides a lot of the group discussions in class. A couple of his teachers have commented on how organized he is. Making comments like, how are they teaching them to study over there at Rainbow? I've had quite a few parents come up to me and ask me, tell me more about Rainbow Mountain, because they didn't realize, how prepared the kids are coming in or can be for high school. And I wanted Samuel to share about the PowerPoint, because I think about...
for Global Studies, I had a PowerPoint presentation I had to make. And Susan and Jason teaching me how to use PowerPoint was very helpful, because nobody else in my class knew how to. And their PowerPoints were really, really bad.
Well, that's interesting, because the question that so many prospective parents ask me is, what about technology here? Because we really don't have technology available to students third grade and below. The teachers might use some, for a lesson. And one of the things I say is, in fact, I just read this factoid today that I wrote down, that I've read a couple different times. The amount of technological knowledge doubles every 2 years. For students in technological courses in college, half of what they learn their first year will be obsolete by the fourth year, which is one of the many reasons why we don't march first graders down to a computer lab and spend time on computers in first grade. It gets updated quickly. And I explained that in the upper grades, technology is completely integrated. It's not a separate class. And whenever I ask high school students about how you compare in terms of technology with your other peers, how did you all feel? Samuel, I just heard from you on PowerPoints in particular. Did anybody feel like you were behind in some way, or that you should have gotten more gear, or that you were ahead?
There's a lot of technology in SILSA. Everyone has their own laptops this year, or at least with my year. And like in English, my English class, we have a journal that's online, we have a notebook that's online, you can write this online. And I honestly don't like it. Like, I prefer actually writing on paper and seeing what I write, erasing it. I don't know. That's I like doing it like that. But There's definitely a lot of computer use, and it's interesting because everyone's behind their screen. So it's pretty different, but yeah.
But you're adapting to that, okay?
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like when I was at Rainbow, it was definitely the integration of it. I didn't know, we're going to the computer lab to use a computer. It was we're going to the computer lab to do this lesson. And I've noticed, definitely in SILSA, my senior year, last year was the first year that they did the one-to-one initiative where every student in SILSA and Asheville High has their own laptop, their school-issued laptop. And like Lucia said, it was definitely that kind of shut off between the screen. And so it was technology was separate from learning it sometimes. And I think that sometimes that's a hard blending to do. But I know in college that line is blurred again, and you're using that technology as a tool for your learning. So I think that for the most part, everyone I know here was prepared to use technology, and definitely around this age it's been something that has been here our whole lives, and it's innate to us. It's just we just know how to use a computer kind of thing.
Going off of what Marley had said before, this is also a big change for me because not only is this my first year at a private school or Rainbow Mountain, but it's my first year at a school at all. I was homeschooled before this, and it was a big change also, but it was kind of a different kind of change than Marley's because, I was used to a very, very, laid back type of day, and I'm used to, when I was homeschooled, sitting on a couch and doing my work and sitting back and every 5 minutes watching a TV show and then going back to homework and then sleeping late and getting up early was definitely a big change. And I also the one-on-one was definitely very good for me because I was very used to that because I was homeschooled and I usually was taught by my mom, and we were one-on-one teaching, so it was good to have that and not such a big change. And I really like that when in math, for example, when let's say for example one time our class did kind of bad on a test, and instead of just letting it breeze past, Jason actually spent the next day doing review and redoing the test and getting everybody to actually understand instead of just letting it breeze past and just people getting bright grades on it. He actually just makes sure that we know it instead of just getting it over with. And so that was very good for me.
Okay. Eddie.
Yeah, it's a real treat to get to see these kids, and a couple of things really jump out at me here. And one of them is that just the way that they got to use their interests and their skills that have been nurtured here at Rainbow Mountain. Like Lucia with her social skills that she has, you can see how that's helping her out at school, interacting with her teachers and peers. Robbie with his physical skills. Adriana with her art and her singing and dancing. Shannon with her love of theater and stuff. I mean, I remember in third grade she did the Barry Van Frank and did made a whole movie, a video with her family. So it's to see those skills and interests that she has being nurtured, not just nurtured, but celebrated here at Rainbow Mountain, given opportunities to let that shine. I think that helped out. Also, something that jumps out is kind of what Jason touched on. It's not just the learning that they do, that you can see that they're doing at high school, but the meta learning, we call it, learning the system that they're in, being able to walk into the school and figure out, okay, this is what the teachers want, and being able to give that to them. This is what's going on socially, and being able to interact with that. Instead of just reacting to it, being in there, just going in there and checking it out, understanding it. And it's like a complete global understanding. And, some of these kids weren't like stellar students that you'd expect, oh man, they're just going to fly through everything and make straight A's their whole life. But they apparently got skills to do a good job, And they all had challenges, all those four that I mentioned on that. I'm wondering how Shannon's doing with her spelling these days. Third grade now, so they all had challenges, but they all like, whoa, really soared. It's great to see you guys getting A's like that. What do you have?
Before I ask those questions, I just had a parent in the comment make a comment like, I'm just absorbing to see if my kids are really going to make these changes, and you know, there's so, you know, parents are the best people to comment on that. The change that kids make developmentally. One thing we do differently at Rainbow is we do not, well, actually, this is a good segue for this quote. I have a quote here by Daniel Pink, who's author of a lot of best-selling books in the business world, and also a book called A Whole New Mind, which is more about education. And basically, what he essentially says is the dominance of left brain linear thinking is gone. The new business world is quickly being dominated by intuitive and creative thinkers. Do you feel Rainbow is preparing students for this new business world is one of the questions I'd like to ask you, but you don't have to answer that right now. The comment that I want to make in regard to that is we don't do things in a linear way here at Rainbow. And so also students' learning is not linear. A lot of schools, conventional schools, are set up so that they expect it to be this exact linear track from kindergarten through 12th grade. And here we recognize that developmentally, it looks a lot more like this. And one of those big jumps is around the age of 14. For some kids it's 7th grade, for some kids it's 8th grade. And I'm wondering if any can comment, I mean the teachers and adults I think are the best comments of this. The change is incredible, and we really hold kids and don't force them to make that linear change. We're willing to wait until they make those leaps themselves and they're really ready for it when they do.
Can I say, well, people always ask you if 7th and 8th grade combined, how do you make sure the 7th graders are getting what the 7th graders are supposed to have and the 8th graders are getting what the 8th graders are supposed to have? We don't see our curriculum like that. We see it as what does Marley need, what does Michaela need, what does Natara need, and we want to make sure that, to me, the biggest thing they can learn is that the effort that they can put into their work and understanding how they learn will make them successful throughout life. And it doesn't matter where you fall when it comes to whether you're doing 7th grade or 8th grade. We're going to make sure they are there as far as their work, but we don't have it set that way. 7th graders have a little bit lower requirements than 8th graders, but they're taught the same material because we're looking at each child individually and we have different goals for each child. We just did PIPs, and I spent 6-7 hours grading their PIPs, and I'm looking at each paper, and I'm looking at each one individually saying, okay, this is their best right now, what can they do next? Okay, this is this person's best right now, what will they do next? But I don't look at it and go, well, his is better than hers, so he gets the A and she gets the B. I'm looking at it to say that this child, this child's doing their A work, and this child's doing their A work, and now I'm ready for them to go to that next level. So it's not linear, it's individual, and Shannon was, she wasn't, you're not gifted academically, but you're gifted. And she's so gifted in her effort, and she learned that. And she didn't let the low math score her freshman year pull her down, and she's got A's in math because she wasn't going to let that. She understood that she could learn from those experiences.
And all of you, one thing that impressed me when you came here, you're all like, oh, I'm not good at this, or I didn't. You're also hard on yourselves. I mean, I have to see that your expectations are so incredibly high, yet you're meeting those expectations. And I have to say, I know that that's part of the reason is because those of you that were gifted academically didn't get to just sail through, you were pushed even more. And those of you who really struggled academically really had to rise, really get to know yourselves as learners and figure out what you were going to do to be successful. And it's wonderful to see that you've done that. Claudia?
I just want to add on to that and to what Eddie said is that I think that builds true confidence to know what you can do and how you can do it better. And I think that that's apart from the very valuable learning skills that Lucia learned here in Rainbow. It was also learning about herself and in herself in relationship in these, like Marley said, in these really deep relationships with her teachers and with her peers, that she learned so much about herself that I don't think that much phases her in the sense that, it is a truly very different environment in high school, at least in Asheville High, and still I think in Carolina Day maybe it's a little bit more similar to here. But I think that the ability she has to, first of all, not be obsessed with fitting in or being popular, but just being not very concerned with that. So that leaves a huge amount of energy for figuring out how to work this system. And I think, in a way, it is not as good an education in high school. You know, it's different. The curriculum looks great, but they push it through at a fast rate. There's a lot of adjusting for kids that are used to the quality and the context and the time spent on content here. But she didn't blink. It was overwhelming for a few weeks. Everybody said, you know, Sandra said, oh yeah, Adrian had that too. And I was like, okay, good. So, you know, it's a change in scale and tempo and impersonal, but it's not hard for you all to figure out how to do it because you have all these skills. Mm-hmm. And that's really been impressive to me to see that happen.
I just wanted to say that when Adriana was in fifth grade, she struggled a lot with math. And a few other things too. And we were in this place where I was like, you know, maybe this isn't the right fit for us either, you know. And we looked at other schools, and she shadowed another school. I reached a point where I thought, you know, we're going to go to another school because I just felt like that maybe this wasn't the best fit for Adriana, you know. And we decided to stay. And she probably doesn't know how much effort went into that. I mean, she visited the school and everything, and Eddie and I talked about it a lot, but we decided to keep her here, and I'm so glad that we did because the attention that Omega gave her, Susan and William and Jason, and just was astounding. I mean, I get choked up. I was like, should I talk? Because I'm going to get choked up. Because the essays that they wrote about themselves, the spiritual element that goes into the curriculum is, you won't find it anywhere. And that's why parents say, we need to do this in other schools, because it doesn't happen anywhere else. And when you see your child write pages and pages about who they are, I mean, that doesn't happen anywhere else. I knew I was going to cry. See? But I did. I got choked up at her, and she's crying too, at her speech. And that's why I'm still here, and Gabby's here, and Alexander's going to go here, because there's no place that will treat our kids the way that they get treated here. It's not about learning how to multiply, how to divide, what are exponents, and the World War II. It's about learning how to be adults in this world, people that are going to serve and be leaders and understand life and this connection that we all have with each other and the earth. And that's what I see. I see the kids at school, and now I see them in high school. I see them in their performances, and I see the life that Liam, I love him and his passion on the theater and the things that he does, and all of these kids. It's beautiful to see that. I hear Adriana share about the projects at school they do. The kids do these math projects, and it's funny, I hear Adriana complain about this group, and I don't know any of these kids, and then she's like, this group is awesome, and she tells me all the kids' names. I'm like, interesting, they all went to Rainbow. The kids that come here, even if it's only for a few years, they're so involved in what they do. They're involved in the project or in the sports. Like there's this sense of life and spirit that goes into what they do. Like they really embrace lifelong learning, and not just academics, but in the sports, in the social piece, in all those domains and areas. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to see the kids just develop in all those areas, this whole people. So.
Susan, I think, was saying about the progression isn't a straight line. Jody has been a great example of that. There are times when I used to be concerned, and I've learned over the years not to be concerned, because maybe she struggles with something, and maybe she struggles for a long time with something, and then all of a sudden, poof, she's there. And it always like, whoa! And there's been a period like that very recently in 8th grade. So I think when she is just saturated in this very rich learning environment, it's going in, but it's not showing right away. And then all of a sudden, boop, it shows.
It's like bobbing up to the surface or something after swimming for a while. And with the 7th and 8th grade combination, there were times in 7th grade when I remember she was thinking, oh man, I'm going to be in 8th grade next year. I'm never going to be able to do anything like so-and-so does, or they've got it, and I just don't understand it at all. And now I'm hearing, now that she's in 8th grade, I'm hearing that she's an inspiration to the 7th graders. So it's like, I think part of our job as parents is to learn to just relax about it and trust that learning process that is, in some children more than others, extremely uneven. And it's still going on. What we can't see, it's invisible, it's under the surface, and then all of a sudden it's like it shows, and it's beautiful. And it's beautiful when it doesn't show too.
I have one last question. And that has to do with the spiritual component here at Rainbow. Especially those of you who have gone to school here since preschool. I remember a couple of years ago at graduation, there were a couple of kids that stood up, like 8th graders at like graduation, and said, I've been going to school at Rainbow for 11 years. I've begun every day of my school life with centering for 11 years. And of course, the spiritual component is not just in centering; it's infused throughout the day. It's very hard to articulate spiritual matters, but would anybody like to contribute as to how that has affected? And Roger, I'd like you to comment on this also, on how that has affected your success, your happiness, and your confidence, and any other aspect of your life in high school or college or otherwise.
That has been one of the biggest things. I'm one of those people that did start like my life with centering all the time, every day, and that was one of my favorite parts of the day. And that was one of the hardest things to transition from going to high school, is I didn't have that time to transfer from my home environment to my school environment, and that was a really like shocking thing to me. But it also taught me that I had to do that myself, and taking 3 deep breaths. Someone's not always going to be there to lead that for you, and you have to lead that for yourself a lot. And I had to learn to do that in high school. And the spiritual thing, that's a very, like Renee said, it's a very hard term to pin down. But for me, and what I learned from my spirituality at Rainbow was just being in touch with myself. And that's what the spiritual aspect of this really holistic education gave me, is that toning everything down. And then being able to come into a room and by just breathing in a room or just being calm in a room, to be able to impact that energy in a room and help that community in that room just kind of come down to a calmer level where it's not as anxious, which is what I feel like a lot of the things we deal with in our daily life, become really anxious, especially in hard academic environments. So that's what really helped me, was just learning to do that myself.
I can relate to that, actually. Because I know, there's lots of tests and stuff, and even just quizzes, or just even work. Sometimes you just come in the day and you're like, oh gosh, I don't feel good about this class, because you just have a big assignment to hand in or something, and you don't know how you did on it. And I was just even in their little rotunda, in the morning, there's all the normal public school kids that have been in public school before, and they'll be in Zasilsa, and they'll just be talking and stuff. And I'm not usually one of those people. I'll talk some, but then I'll usually just sit there because I'm tired, and I just settle myself before starting the day, because I'm not even doing it purposefully. I just sort of sit there. I just watch all the interactions going around, but it's just sort of relaxing. And then, if I have a test coming up or something, I'll just, calm myself down, because, maybe I'll start walking really fast to the class, trying to, get there and study fast or something. But it's a lot easier just to calm yourself down, because if you're calm, you can actually, look at the information that's being fed to you and, just analyze it. And so then I think you actually do better because you're calm, versus studying a lot and try to cram in all that information, versus letting it just come in. So I think it helps a lot to center yourself a little before doing things that maybe making you anxious.
I also think that it has a really big part of that being able to center yourself has really ties into knowing yourself and being comfortable in that social group kind of environment where you're constantly with your peers, is, you know, being that one person who's kind of like a solid person who's able to walk calmly to class before a test, or be able to not be freaking out when something is very dramatic, and just to like tone down the situation and kind of de-escalate things is, you know, a helpful thing in academics and socially too.
Yeah.
Are you gonna maybe
Go ahead.
I definitely feel like Rainbow helped me with like establish what my morals are as a person, like what is right to me and what isn't right. And it's really interesting because when freshman year, I met a lot of people that just didn't have a lot, like didn't understand things that I was just like, why? Like, why would you do, you know, like things that were just taught to me either in Rainbow or through my social interactions here, just known that that was something that was just, you know, you don't do. Some people just don't have morals, and I feel like it's definitely something that will help you through your whole life, is knowing who you are, and that if you solidly know what you believe in, nobody can change that. So that definitely helped me.
And it was just kind of like what Shannon and Robbie said too with the centering. I always loved centering when I came here. It was like you weren't even at school yet. You were preparing for what was to come and getting ready for the day so you could get through it. And I think that's really helped me, like, just remain relaxed and everything. Like, you can ask most of my teachers. I'm probably one of the calmest guys in the classroom all the time. But it's a thing about a time and place, because once school's over and then sports, it's completely different. And it helps me, I don't know, it's just channeling when you want to be this and when you want to let everything else out and go for it. And it helps, yeah, and just to calm down and think everything through. So yeah.
Roger, did you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I see things a little different than Rob does. One of the blessings that we see reflected in him is because it's clearly explained and shown that there's more than one step to one path to the Creator. It gives him a sense of openness, and he doesn't rush to judgment about people and situations, and that's very rare. One of the things he explained to me quickly on was that in high school everybody gets put into a category, they get a name, a group, a title, and then that's where they are. But I think he's floated to a very good extent beyond that categorization. The other one is he does have a way to keep things in perspective, and of course I never overreact to anything, but he's helped my wife understand that some things aren't the big deal in high school that honestly both of us might have thought they were going to be, and that's been good for us, I think. We carried a lot of fears and worries, and having a student or son that makes sense and puts things in perspective was really helpful. And the other one goes back to the comment about being comfortable in your own skin that was mentioned here earlier. That's all of these success stories here are comfortable in their own skin, and they've really chosen to hold themselves to the highest standards. The other thing that Rob could have let slip, he found out how little you have to do to actually get through high school, and how many people are following that path over there. And I'm sure all of you were exposed to that at some point, and yet you've all held yourselves to the standard of excellence. And some of that comes from brains, and some of that comes from hard work, but some of that comes from inner motivation that is value from the spiritual thing in other areas that are brought through over here.
I'd like to say something about centering also. When I first started here, the first couple of months, I got really stressed all the time because I wasn't used to having a lot of homework and stuff like that. And I would show up to school, I'd be rushing all morning because I woke up late and just rushing, trying not to get here tardy, and I get into school all stressed, and then when I get into centering, Jason or Susan or whoever's leading centering always rings the bell, and it's always like about a minute of just silence, and right at that moment I just realize how not stressed I could be if I tried, and I just kind of closed my eyes, took a couple deep breaths, and thought about how I could make the situation better. And centering always really helped me to not make my day, it always made my day turn out better than what I thought it would have been in the morning. So.
Thank you. Great, thank you all of you incredible participants, and thank you Omegas for surprising us and being willing to be here and comment today. I'm so proud of all of you, and thank you so much for all that you are giving to our world and our community, and thank you for being here and volunteering with us today. Appreciate it.